Agent. Ready to see how far down the rabbit hole really goes.
Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today, oh man, we have got a lot to talk about. The Vanguard finale for The Division 2 is dropped, the community is on fire, and we have just about as many questions as we do answers. So, in this video, I'm going to do my best to recap the insane reveals and information that we learned and give my thoughts on what is next for The Division 2. I'm going to put this right at the top. I'm giving you your most major spoiler warning that I can possibly give. If you care at all about finding out about any of these story elements for yourself, you want to play them in game first, there are some huge reveals that we're going to cover in this video that cannot be gone back on once you hear them, so from here on out, be warned. But we're going to get right into it, and if you end up enjoying this recap and breakdown, then I would greatly appreciate you clicking that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd love to have you, and there's a lot more of these coming in the future. Without further ado, let's go. So, yesterday was the release for the final target in the Vanguard season in Battery Park, and that subsequently unlocked the finale. There's not too much I have to say from the sub-target portion of the manhunt here. We did learn from the comms that Bridget Douglas, aka Viper, who was a target back in season 3 or 4, I want to say, was indeed a hunter. This was a pretty cool reveal. It kind of ties into Cal's threat that he made to Natalia a long time ago that there are hunters embedded within her ranks. No, I don't really see that plot thread going anywhere because Viper's dead, at least maybe, probably. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Let's move on to the finale itself, however, as there is frankly a shit ton to break down. First off, for those wondering about Comm 26, how do you get it? Where is it? Why is it missing? It is indeed bugged. That has been confirmed. Some people got it when they completed the manhunt, some didn't, myself included. It's actually not even a comm, it is one final written out note from Kelso. Here's a peek at it on screen if you're curious. Feel free to pause, screenshot, whatever. There is also a backpack trophy that you're supposed to get if you didn't get it. Again, I didn't get it myself, but this is what it looks like. Shout out and thanks to Sunset Ravens over on Discord for these photos. I can confirm that the developers are aware of these issues and looking into resolving this, so sit tight. I'm sure we'll have an update soon. I also wanted to shout out that if you die to the hunter in this finale mission, it will skip you past the fight just like it did in the Coney Island manhunt mission back from season 3. But if this happens to you, then you're missing out on getting the new hunter mask. So if this does happen where you die and it skips you past, then later on you want to replay the mission. If you need to drop the difficulty to kill the hunter, go ahead and do it. Upon killing him, you will get this cool new freedom mask. Currently, it does not add this new mask to the wall of hunter masks at Haven. People speculated that this might be the missing one for the hook that appeared on that wall a few seasons back. From what I heard, it might actually be the one that is intended for that. Maybe it's just a bug. It'll be fixed in an upcoming patch. We'll see. Also, one other cool little note is that if you die to the hunter within this mission, the death recap reads out, "You should have let us recruit you. This one's for Brian." So I just thought that was a cool little Easter egg, of course, calling back to last season with Brian Johnson being the recruiter. So there you go. Shout out to Hermes for the image. But let's get to it and talk about the story. What the actual hell happened in this mission? I'm not going to beat around the bush. The major reveal is that Aaron Keener and to a lesser but still important extent Theo Parnell are alive. What happens at the end of the mission is that we find the shade crate that we saw Kelso interact with in the cutscene, the present that she's been tracking down this whole season. We walk towards it, it stuns us, much the same as it did her. Why we touched it, I have no idea. We saw what happened to her, but we were needed the entire time to open it, as the two-factor authentication was having Keener and Faye's watches and identities present to open it. Kelso had Faye's watch after Camp White Oak, she took it, and they lured her in to get that half of it, and we had Keener's. We took his watch back on Liberty Island when we thought that he died, and they lure us in. Keener then emerges once we're down to copy his profile off of it onto his new watch. And then bam, the crate opens, and within was a mobile server of sorts. It seems to be more related to Anna as they talk about establishing a wider rogue network. We then see Keener take it with him onto the bridge and climb into a van where Theo Parnell is also revealed to be alive. And our girl Kelso is there, her watch flicks red, and she seemingly disgruntledly drives them off towards what would appear to be Brooklyn. So it is a crap ton to take in. Let's discuss the resurrection first. I want to state off the bat that I am not a fan of resurrections in any storytelling or media. I believe that death deserves weight, and once you do this, where somebody dies and then they kind of magically come back to life, it sets a precedent. And I do believe that moving forward, that question is always going to be in our minds when we see someone die, is this person really dead? And that is a consequence that the game is going to have to live with. That said, for me personally, I think the explanation that they gave for why Keener and Theo are alive mostly fits with prior information we had and makes sense. What they explain is that Theo's stunt at the tombs back during Warlords of New York was the trial run, right? They staged the entire thing where at the end of the mission, it seems like Keener is abandoning him. They wanted to fool the Black Tusk and Natalia, and in turn they fooled us as well. And so between decoy tech, Isaac tampering, and a little bit of magic, we are tricked into thinking that Theo is dead. And then with that reassurance and that trial run under their belt, they pull the same stunt with Keener on Liberty Island in order to get off the Black Tusk's radar. More on that in a minute. And so, if that is what they're going for, I can believe that that happened. But it's not perfect, right? You still have to suspend disbelief that we didn't go to check Keener's body further, that we didn't just walk away from it after 5 seconds and just didn't really do anything. At the end of the day, this is all still highly convenient, and I know many will draw their line here, right? They won't be able to accept that this logically happened. For me, the line would have been Fei Lao if they were to bring her back into the story, which is what I saw many people speculating. Her death was simply too definitive. We saw her in a body bag, and so that would have been another level for me if they were to have tried to bring her back. For this, with the explanation they gave, I can accept it. The upside to all of this is that we get arguably the best and most iconic Division character back in the story of Aaron Keener, which is just freaking awesome. And what I think you really have to keep in mind is that there is a very, very high likelihood that none of this was planned back when Warlords of New York was made, when these decisions were made about these characters. And so when they restarted the game and laid out this new idea and vision for the story, these were essentially the hoops that they knew they would eventually have to jump through in order for it to work, for them to get to the point that they want to get to in the future. And at the end of the day, you can either live with that or you can't. Obviously, there's no judgment either way, but I'll certainly be curious to hear people's thoughts about this specifically. Still plenty of other stuff to cover though. I did have one main disappointment with this finale, and that was the lack of investment or payoff for Kelso herself. I mean, it makes sense, right? Keener orchestrated everyone's movements, who went where, did what. But this whole season was about finding Kelso, following Kelso, just to get nothing out of it but to see her watch flicking red in a white van while driving away. To me, it felt a little bit anticlimactic, but many have pointed out how in the cutscene she doesn't look particularly happy in that van, and I would agree. She's doing this out of a perceived necessity rather than any kind of joy or desire to actually do it. And that was another big topic that I wanted to cover here about going rogue. People are still saying this like it's an automatic bad thing, right? I saw many people say, oh, I can't believe that Kelso went rogue. Division 1 was really, I think, one of the only periods where the two sides of rogue versus non-rogue were really black and white. These days, all of the factions and allegiances we have in the Division 2 are almost entirely gray. And we had the same discussion last season when the recruiter says that we are off mission if we don't side with Cal. That doesn't make us the bad guys. Just like Kelso's watch turning red doesn't make her bad. Cal and Natalia are the threat, right? They're the enemy. And so it's not about whose watch is left orange to fight them. Rather, what tools can we possibly acquire and what allies can we make to actually have a chance of taking them on? Keener, despite him being back and despite how awesome that is, he's still not a good guy after this. I don't think so. One comm that I really appreciated from this finale was how we learned that Faye nearly broke her alliance with him after he used the Eclipse virus on City Hall and killed civilians. Right? These characters are still the ones that we know. They still have the same motivation. But it's about deciding what sacrifices are worth making for what you believe is doing the right thing. And right now, Keener is in enough alignment with our own goal of saving the country and the world from Natalia that it's worth siding with him to try and do so. If that means that we end up using Anna, if it means that we quote-unquote go rogue, so be it. It doesn't make us bad people. And at least those are the choices that Kelso seems to have made by the time this finale concludes. And so that leads me into the final topic that I want to cover here, which is where is this all headed? One thing I do really like about Vanguard's finale is that it kind of brings a lot of storylines full circle and allows us to finally kind of move forward with things. We have now a proper explanation for why the events of Warlords of New York happened. All along, Keener has been against Natalia, the Black Tusk, Cal, the Hunters. He knows that this threat is out there. And so in Warlords of New York, he and Theo fake their own deaths to be able to get off of the Black Tusk's radar so that they can continue to try and fight them from the shadows, and they're able to also get Faye within the ranks of the Black Tusk to do further damage there. This explains the oddities about the Liberty Island mission. He wanted the Black Tusk to be coming at him as hard as they could so that when he died it seemed the most realistic. And so, now we have our players, and we have our conflict. And the one thing I want to say here, I want to preface, it's been out long enough that I think I need to start regularly including it in some of these discussions because it's too important. So for this last little bit here, spoilers for the Division Hunted novel ahead. If you haven't read it, you should. It's very good, and it does connect to all the stuff we're talking about. We know that Natalia and Cal are not going anywhere anytime soon. The epilogue in that book shows them alive roughly 10 months ahead of when this finale is taking place. And for reference, the last 4 seasons of story have taken place in, I think, 2 weeks' time in-game. So they're going to be around for a long, long time. And in one of these final comms that we get to hear, Keener talks about how Natalia is the main threat. He says that she wants to redesign the world in her image. And we've heard this over and over, and about how she has all these different contingencies and plans. She wants to use the button for nukes. That was back in season 4 and 9. She's building this underground city. We heard about that last season. She wants the masses to love her so that they want to support her over the division or any other authority. We learned that back in year 5, season 1, right? So she has a clear goal. And in response to all of that, Theo and Keener are talking about this, and they share these 2 lines that I really love the symbolism of, so let me play them really quickly.
We're here to save what remains and rise from the ashes before there's nothing left to save.
So I thought that was a pretty cool twist on these kind of classic division mantras. Moving forward, it is all about this conflict. We are outgunned, we are outnumbered, but with the right allies and tools, maybe we have a chance against this threat. And Kelso says in her final note that this is about picking up where Faye left off and doing whatever is necessary to win this war. And so whether we're talking about year 6, the seasons and story we're going to get there, the Brooklyn DLC, whatever else might come after that, I think that all of it in some way will be battles and moves leading to the eventual war that I think will play out in the Division 3. That is my crazy, bold prediction that I'm going to make right now. Maybe I'm totally wrong, maybe I'm way off, we'll see eventually, but that's what I've got for now. And my friends, with that, I wrap up my recap and breakdown of everything that we learned in the Vanguard finale for the Division 2. Absolutely insane, off-the-wall revelations with the resurrections, essentially, of Aaron Keener and Theo Parnell. We've got Kelso going rogue, quote-unquote, we talked about that. We've got Keener getting what is within the crate, which seems to be an Anna server. Just so much stuff, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on whatever you're thinking after playing through or seeing coverage on the finale. I am extremely curious to see where Year 6 Season 1 and Year 6 as a whole goes after this. How do they work that in with the Brooklyn DLC? Is it connected? I would love to just see what they're going to do, and we're going to find out soon enough. So, as always, when we learn more, I've got you covered, but until then, that's all I've got for today, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Out.